Welcome to the City Debate Show. And have I got a treat for you today? Because joining me around the table, this man, footballer, manager, coach, scout, businessman, after-dinner speaker, broadcaster and million-selling author, the one and only Fred Eyre. And he doesn't like me using this word, but if there's a true City legend, footballer turned film star, Michael Summerbee.
Thank you very much.
You better be good after that build-up, Mike.
I'm just thinking of something to say, actually, but I can't think of it at the moment.
Fred, let's start with a difficult bit. Everton.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to recall even after the weekend. You know, it was so painful. The last gasp winner by Tim Cahill. So unnecessary, really. Unnecessary corner. You know, a great leap by Cahill. That's what he does. So we'll give him credit for that. Although he wasn't hampered by a City player.
It was a set piece. He didn't get in the box late, did he, or anything?
No. And, you know, obviously we had no one really jumping with him. And more importantly for me, we didn't have anybody on either post, which I can never understand.
So, Mike, what was your overall impression of the game?
You know, Everton came and they set themselves up for a result, you know, to get a draw or something. You know, they weren't the most enterprising side, but they worked hard for each other, they grafted for each other. And you know very well you've got to work hard to break them down. But if I can remember, a couple of years ago, it might be longer than that, they came to our new stadium and they got a winner in the last minute again by Cahill as well. Mm. So, you know, you could see it coming, though, as the game progressed. You could see that they were going to snatch it at the very end. You could see it, you know, but unfortunately he should have been picked up. And as I said, Fred said, it was an unnecessary corner. You know, we passed the ball around, we worked pretty hard at it, but we never seemed to have that killer touch in front of goal. It
never really sparked into life, the game, though, Fred.
No, there was. That was probably because there was no cutting edge at either end. You know, as everybody knows, they haven't got a striker, Everton, at the moment, so they've had to make do and mend, and they shoved Cahill up there, and he did a manful job. And our main strikers, you know, we're only playing with one. So if you're only playing with one striker, he's got to be a good one. And, you know, at the moment, both Benjani and Joe are both sadly lacking.
It's interesting, though, Mike, because it was a fairly mediocre game, but just in the middle, there was one absolutely beautiful move fashioned with the two Brazilian lads that would have graced any game at any level. And you just, that little split second when you think the potential within the side on the days when they get it right.
Well, the potential's there. We've got good players there, but, you know, we're not blending together at the moment. You know, the work rate's there. But as Fred said, and we'll go on, there's no cutting edge to it. We never look as if we're going to score a goal. You know, people don't anticipate things happening in the box. When you're a goal scorer, you can anticipate what's going to happen. You have to attack the ball in the box. And unfortunately, we're not doing that. You know, we've got the ability with Rubino, but Rubino, he can't win the ball. He's not a big tackler. You know, people have got to do that for him. But when you're playing with a man of his ability, you've got to have people around that can read his mind and pass the ball to him and give him an opportunity to do it.
Now, I don't think any of the top players of the bloke playing up top has set the world alight yet, Fred. We are being linked very strongly with Rocky Santa Cruz as a possible target in January. But I noticed last week, young Daniel Sturridge says, I can do that job, give me a chance. Would you be tempted to do that now?
Well, the transfer window is becoming tantalisingly close now.
It is, yeah.
So we're going to have to, in a way, which you shouldn't be talking like this when the players have cost so much money, but make do and mend for maybe another four weeks. And then I'd like to see Santa Cruz come in, not only because he's a great player, but he has actually proved it in the Premiership. You know, it's not like bringing somebody in from the other side of the world, equally great player, but you think, oh, you know, will he do it or won't he? At least Santa Cruz is proven in this country. So for me, it wouldn't matter who plays up front against West Brom, Hull and Blackburn, so long as we get you know, the proper man in for the job in the new year.
But, Mike, by the time you were Daniel Sturridge's age, you played about 200 first-team games, hadn't you? So would you be tempted to say, all right, if you believe you can do it, we'll give you a stab before we get a new face in?
No, I have to agree with Fred. I think, you know, we need someone established. Santa Cruz, I mean, the young boy Sturridge, every time I've wanted to see him play, he's always been injured or something's happened. So I watched him in the Paris Saint-Germain game. I watched him very closely. And he really has got to get his mind functioning properly in this game. You've got to work hard when you play up front, you know, and you've got to attack people and have a go. And the ball's got to stick as well. We've got nobody at the moment who, when you play the ball forward to either Benjani or whoever's in the side, Joe, and the ball never sticks. You know, you've got to have the ball, man can control the ball and get inside the box. And Santa Cruz is a man, you know, as Fred said, he's proven in the Premier Division. And also, when you knock a ball to him, it sticks. But when you play a ball in the air to him, you've got a 99% chance of him winning the ball in the air, because he's good in the air. And we haven't got anybody at the moment that can attack the ball, and also for flick-ons and things like that, where the ball keeps coming back all the time.
When you look at the league table, though, Fred, even if you're a half full or a half empty, it is a little bit worrying, and we always call for patience. But me and you, between us, have done hundreds of post-match phone-ins. But Mark Hughes took a fair bit of flack, certainly on the one that I did on Saturday. Is that partly due to the fact when you've got all this money, people's expectation, timescale goes like that? It's got to happen now.
I'm sure it is. And in a way, in this modern world of instant mashed potatoes, instant coffee, instant this, instant that, you know, you don't want to keep being told. Like, if you go back a couple of managers with Stuart Pearce saying about one of our other strikers, Samaras, for example, they signed him for a biggish fee, and Stuart tells us, don't judge him now, judge him in 2 years. I'm sorry, we'll judge him in a few weeks, but we can't wait 2 years these days for people to come good. And I don't know about yourself, Jim, but some of the fans that I speak to, and I speak to a lot on my travels...
I know you do, like the Pied Piper.
they're getting fed up of being asked to wait and asked to be patient. We're forever looking forward to the next transfer window. We've been looking forward now for about 3 seasons, every 6 months, pinning our hopes on the next transfer window. And sooner or later, they're going to say, enough's enough, we want it now.
Well, I understand the logic of that, Mike, but there's a bit of me that says, for 30 years I've watched us chop and change managers, and it's got us nowhere. And I think sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and find the patience.
I think, well, you've got to do that. I think last season, when Sven had a good start and we had a bad second half of the season, well, hopefully, we've had not a particularly good start this year, but next season we can, as Mark says in most of his articles, they have a strong finish. Now, I know they're much fitter than what they were, the players, when in Sven's era, but the thing about it is that, you know, we can't keep changing managers all the time. You know, you've got to stick in there. And I personally think Mark Hughes is the man to do the job. He's brought discipline into the club. He's brought discipline at the training ground. You know, I think you've got to look at it sometimes. Instead of looking at the manager all the time, you've got to look at some of the players, the attitude of the players. And, you know, when you play football, it's a short career. You know, go out there and enjoy it. Get on with the game. You're playing in a beautiful stadium. You're well looked after. You're well paid. You know, a manager and a coaching staff can only do so much. At the end of the day, you've got to go on that field and perform to your ability, to the highest level. Simple as that. And we've got the players that can do that. But there are 1 or 2 players that have been inherited. Mark's inherited these players, and I don't think they fit into the situation he wants. So when we come into the new year and we go in the transfer market, if we can get Santa Cruz up front, well, we're halfway there with them. Because you've got someone who can attack the ball, can score goals. He's proven.
When you look at that, Fred, you've watched thousands of games of football at every level. Do you look at that side and think they look a bit short of confidence? You look at players who don't seem quite happy with the job they're being asked to do?
I look at, you see, Everton, they were short up front. Yeah. But they did have a little bit of pattern. As the game wore on, it looked as though each man had a job, even though in Cahill's case it was one foreign to his nature, but he was just making the best of it. They had a bit of a pattern. We seem to be just relying on our individual stars, say, to try and get the ball to Robinho. He obviously was below par at the weekend. I don't know whether he's still carrying that injury a little bit, but you know, he didn't do himself any favours really on Saturday in the eyes of the public. When he was the week before, he was just saying about instilling the winning mentality into the rest of the players. I didn't see much of it from him on Saturday. Give him the benefit of the doubt, because he might still have been suffering with the injury. He's a great talent, we know that. But if we're going to play everything through him, he's got to be right on top of his game. And if on occasions he's not, he's got to put a little bit more hard work in to try and get himself into the game.
One thing, though, Mike, I suppose as we go over this Christmas period, we've got a run of games against, no disrespect, what you would consider lesser sides, not the top 4. So however patient you want to be with Mark Hughes, however patient you want to be with City, this is a time when you've got to put a marker down, otherwise it could be a real dogfight, couldn't it, this?
It could be, you know, but I think we'll get results. I think we'll get some results over Christmas, which is important. But, you know, as I said to you before, you know, we've got to stick in there. I mean, if you look at the players on Saturday when we played, Sean Wright-Phillips, I like Sean Wright-Phillips in a natural position, which is a wide man. You know?
Yes.
You know, he was caught in possession with quite a few times in that position. And I know how difficult it is to play there. They put me there at Burnley, put me in central midfield at Burnley. And, you know, I just didn't know where the hell I was. And, I mean, you know, the game's around you and in front of you and behind you, you know. And if you're not used to that situation in midfield, you know, you struggle. And I think that you've got to be able to play in wide. We've got to play wide men. And we've got to be able to pick up results. And the only way you pick up results, you know, you have to roll your sleeves up and get on with the job and get stuck in. Everton did that on Saturday. They worked to the side, they grafted, they were tackling, they were getting stuck in. And when I say stuck in, I don't mean kicking people, but you've got to have a bit of aggression on the side. And I think we're missing a little bit of aggression in midfield. Comfort is the only one, I think, at the moment who gets stuck in for the ball. Ireland is playing exceptionally well. But, you know, we need a little bit of steel in midfield. We've got to do that. And I think we've got to have, as Fred will say, in any game, you've got to have a relief ball, and your relief ball is a wide man. And your wide man is Sean Wright-Phillips, you know, simple as that. And
well, I think we'll talk about Sean a little bit more, but just to end the first half, Fred, Mike's alluded to it a couple of times. Is there an attitude transplant part of the solution in the short term?
Well, I think a win would improve everybody's attitude. You know, it's really difficult. I always consider every player, especially the ones wearing a blue shirt, I always think that they go out originally with the right attitude. I can't ever believe that anybody comes up that tunnel, you know, with the wrong attitude. It's just that if we don't get off to a great start, the odd head goes down a little bit, you know, quicker than it should do. So, you know, you can call that attitude if you like, but I'm sure they're all properly prepared, and they all, you know, when the game actually starts. But we could do with a leader. I know Dunny's our captain, and that's fair enough. I don't see him as a natural leader. I'm not suggesting that he shouldn't be in the side. We love Dunny. He's done fantastic for the last 4 years. But I do feel we could do with a natural leader in the team. And they're a bit thin on the ground. You know, we haven't got a Roy Paul, a Mike Doyle, and Andy Morrison. You know, I just feel as though we could do with somebody like that. Phil Neville did it for Everton on Saturday. I thought he led and led and led.
This is Fred Eyre, this is Mike Summerbee, and this is the City Debate Show. We'll see you in 2. City Debate Show, and round the table today, the great Mike Summerbee and a man of manifold talents, the one and only Fred Eyre. Fred, can we just have a word about leadership? You were talking before about Richard Dunn. I know we can't always hark back to the good old days, but when Mike was playing in that great City team at the end of the 60s, nobody needed to tell people like Franny Lee to get stuck in or keep their head up, did they? So, is part of the... Would you be looking for a real leader of men now?
I'd love us to have one. As you mentioned, Franny wasn't the captain. He didn't come out with the ball. He didn't toss the coin.
Didn't need one, though, did he?
But he was a leader in himself, in addition to the skipper that they all respected and was a good leader himself, to Tony Buck. Mike Doyle was the same at that time. He wasn't captain, but he was a natural leader as well. Mike adding his own little personal bit of leadership from the wing and setting by example, as Colin Bell did. So that was the great days. But it's no coincidence, you know, that great teams, you know, have players in it who are prepared to, you know, to take on responsibility over and above their own particular jobs.
But that team that you played in, there were 5 or 6 natural leaders. But is that something you're born with, Mike? Because modern footballers seem to wait for someone to tell them what to do a lot more.
You're born with it in the fact that, you know, when you go on the field there, you're brought up in an era when, you know, once you get into that first team, you're going to stay there. But you're born with an attitude, you know, a professional attitude of going out there. And the person who takes the ball out is a captain. But the whole side of captains, you know, you fill in for each other, you work for each other, you give people challenge off at half-time, there's big arguments in there because you're working for each other, and all you're working for is the success of that team. And we were very successful in that way because we had players that could, you know, you can only do so many things. Like Malcolm would do certain things at the training ground, but if things weren't going particularly right on the field, we didn't look over to the touchline for him. We changed it ourselves. We did it. If Francis was struggling at centre-forward, he'd go outside right and I'd go to centre-forward. Neil Young would switch wings, but no, we didn't have to look over to the touchline to see and ask people if it's permission to do that. You did that. And when there was a quick corner, you didn't wait for someone to come from the left-back position on the other side of the field to take it. you just took it. If it was a quick throw-in, you took it. Because everybody went on that field. Once you go on that football field, Fred will tell you, the coaching situation goes out the door. You've had your coaching through the week, you've done your training, everything. Once you go on that field, you're a man, you're a captain, even if you don't carry the ball out at half-time. And you make your decisions, we all make the decisions, and we work for each other. And that is what it's all about. Our success was because we worked for each other. And we grafted for each other. And that was what it's all about. And you come off, if you got beat, the crowd will go unhappy because they've seen every player on that field give 110%. And that's what it's all about. If you wear the shirt, the blue shirt in Manchester City, that's what you've got to do.
Ken Barnes will be sat at home jumping up at his telly going, yes, 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 well, you know, about taking responsibility.
Yeah, indeed. Wish we could have him, by the way.
Yeah, but when people came in the side, younger players came in the side, they adapted to it straight away. They were encouraged. You know, they would pat him on the back, and that's what it's about. Everybody on the field does things to each other, and you help each other, because that's what it's all about. You've got to work for each other and graft, and Fred will tell you that as well.
One of the interesting things about being a City fan now, Fred, and all the years that me and you've spent talking about City, until this season we could go, never going to get him, never going to get him. Theoretically now we can put a list out, who's the best at that, who's the best at that, and just work our way down the list. It won't work like that, obviously. But there's a bit of me that thinks, hang on, when he's talking about spending 120 million quid on a goalkeeper.
I know. Well, who's talking about that? I'd love to know whether that is absolutely true.
It's a good yarn, though, isn't it?
But certainly the expectation levels of the fans is sky high, and it will be because, you know, with the position that we've suddenly found ourselves in, you know, who's to deny the supporters this dream? And obviously we'll see the proof of the pudding will be in January when the window opens and we see who actually comes to the club.
But, Mike, I still think, however much money you've got, there's more to building a football team than just buying all the best players. Because, no disrespect, that great team that you played in, I can remember you got George Heslop, he was Everton's reserve centre-half, wasn't he? Bucky didn't play a first-team game till he was 35, or depends who you believe, what age he was when he came.
Don't forget they spent big money, 10 grand on Tony Coleman.
Yes, it was.
35,000 on you, 40 for throwing money about.
60,000 on Colin. Francis, he was the most expensive. Colin was 45.
But without being too flippant, Mike, if you look back on the greats of Manchester City, nobody's going to put Harry Dowd in nets or George Heslop at centre-half, are they? But the whole was bigger than the sum of the parts. Sometimes I look at City now and say there's some great parts, but the whole isn't working.
You know, when the January comes, then, you know, they'll fill those holes, but he will do it in a way that the players he's going to bring in have got to adapt to that side and blend and help that side. You know, you've got your younger players in there. They've got to mould into that side, and once you get that mould right and everybody fits into to every little portion of it, then you get your side together. I mean, we were when we won the second division, we had a very, very good side, but there was something missing, and the key to the door was Francis Lee.
Yeah.
When Francis Lee came, that was it, and that was it. Now you'll do that, Mark Hughes. You'll do it. Whatever happens in life, Manchester City are a very, very wealthy club. You know, not whatever happens you can talk of, and it's very serious money. You know, you've got to understand it's very, very serious money. There's no credit squeeze in Abu Dhabi or anything like that. The money's available, but Mark Hughes is a very sensible person. He's got a good coaching staff behind him. They will only bring in the players they need. But let me just say, you can get any player you want, really, because most of the Premier Division clubs are struggling financially, and the money's there. So whatever happens, the only thing is you'll be looking at inflated prices, and I'll tell you, and Manchester City won't be paying stupid money. I'll tell you that now.
Do you know what? Last week, Fred, was the 41st anniversary of the Bally on Ice. And I was saying to Mike before we actually started today, I was 14 watching that game. But I can't remember much of the game. But the feeling on the Kippax was that, hang on, we're watching something a bit special here. Not just a team that plays good football. We're watching a good team. They brought Franny in, and he'd been the catalyst. But we knew it was special. It'd be lovely if City could land on that signing that produced that moment again, that Kippax moment. Because we all knew, we were all stood there thinking, this is different, this is special now.
Yeah, you were watching the team that took the tips off the studs and had the nails showing through.
Fred, please.
So they could get a grip.
Please,
but I was watching a team playing against Jimmy Greaves and that like as well. No mugs with these Spurs.
No, it was a great.
They were only little nails, Fred. They were only little nails.
Just enough to make a gash.
You know, just made it up.
But I'd like to think that, as far as Mark Hughes is concerned, that the work's already been done. that you know, everybody's already in place to be signed in January. You know, it's no good suddenly waiting for January the 1st and then setting your stall out and saying try and get him, and him. I'd like to think, and I'm sure it is the case, that the graft has already been sorted. It's already been sorted out, and it's just a case after the window opens of dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
But while the big job is in progress, Matt, I always think if you can just sugar the pill a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, you've won the FA Cup, so you know what that thrill is. How important would you see an FA Cup run maybe for City this year?
I think it's important. I think we've got to do... I think it's very, very important. I think we've got to make some big progress in the FA Cup. It's a very important thing. And the UEFA Cup as well, because people want to see Manchester City win something. You know, win a trophy or something. It's important. The FA Cup, for me, is the biggest thing. You know, to actually play in an FA Cup final is wonderful. When you think of all the great sides before and the people that have won the FA Cup, and also the great players that never won there. So Tom Finney never won a FA Cup. So it's important for Manchester City that we can go out there and win a trophy or something this season, or do something. Or let's have a good second half of the season and finish up in a really reasonable position. You know, let's finish up. But by the end of the season, let's have a side there that you are scared to come to Eastlands. You know they can go away and win a game and win games. You know, this is what we've got to get. I mean, I was talking to my wife, who's got no idea about football at all. She said, I said, did you ever think about when we were playing? She said, well, no, really, because you always won every week. You always won away from home. You know, in my mind, you always seem to win. It was expected that you won at home. And it was expected you get a result when you're away from home. That's what I want to see at the end of this season.
Well, I want to get to the summer
still,
and say, get the summer out of the way. I can't wait for August.
But I want to see Mark Hughes there, because, you know, we can chop and change boundaries forever. At the end of the day, he's got a bit of a pedigree and he'll do the business for us, no problem.
Last comment to you, really, Fred, because it's 10 years ago this season since me, you and Gary Owen were dancing at the old Wembley, because we got out of the third division. I'd love to do it at a cup final,
mighty Gillingham.
It'd be great, though, wouldn't it?
Well, I always loved the FA Cup, as you know, and I thought, and I still think it's really vital for Manchester City to win a trophy this season. That's why I was so disappointed that we went out of the Carling Cup. Obviously, that's the lesser one of the trophies, you know, at Brighton in such circumstances. You know, it was disappointing, to say the least. But the FA Cup would be fantastic, and there's no reason for Manchester City not to have a tremendous run in that. As Mike said before, we've got the players, and on these one-off games, starting with a nice home draw against Nottingham Forest, you know, who's to say that this won't be our season? That's what we're hoping for, anyway. Many,
many thanks to Fred Eyre and to Mike Summerbee. Now, this man, he won't thank me for saying this, but today marks a birthday for the one and only Mike Summerbee. So from all of your friends here at Channel M and on the City Debate Show, Mike Summerbee, happy birthday.
Thank you, Darren. What's wonderful, that.
Here it is.
Oh,
as big as that. It's fantastic.
Notice the blue...
I know, but lovely
blue
Kirsty
icing.
brought it for you,
Thank
Mike.
you, Kirsty. Thank you, Darren. What's your on camera when you did it?
Are you going to blow it out?
I'm going to blow it out, Kirsty.
You got enough puff left, Mike?
Oh, go on, old-timer.
Many, many thanks to Mike and Fred. We'll see you next time
Darren.
on the City Debate Show. Happy birthday, Michael.
Thank you very much.